All right. Welcome back. I'm going to do another response to an environmental science Prager U video. This one called The Truth About CO2, which is another video that's liked, disliked into oblivion. And just for good measure, we do even have a context thing because YouTube is trying to tell you that climate change is actually real. So this ought to be very interesting. Let's see what Patrick Moore has to say. Oh, wait a minute.
Dirtiest words in the English language. Well, if you're concerned with global warming, as so many people are these days, the answer is obvious. The two words are carbon dioxide, or as it is known by its chemical symbol, CO2.
Okay. I'm kind of curious where he's going to go with this because the truth about CO2 kind of implies it's not going to be. And the way he starts off. All right. Anyways.
One atom of carbon and two atoms of oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
If we pump much more of it into the atmosphere, the argument goes, we're going to alter the climate.
I don't know what he means by the argument goes because that is what is happening. Like this is a proven fact now. Anyways, let me let him finish.
Catastrophically. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC,
Mm-hmm.
CO2 emissions from fossil fuels, which constitute 85% of our energy use, must be reduced to zero by 2100.
Yeah,
If we don't
sounds
save
reasonable
ourselves from
enough.
ourselves, we're toast.
Mm-hmm.
That's the claim. Here's what's strange though, all life is carbon based, and the carbon for all that life originates from carbon dioxide.
Yes, all life is carbon based and it comes a lot from carbon dioxide, but that doesn't mean that we can, like, just because some carbon is good doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that more carbon must be good. Like it's not like a forever upward trend. It's probably more like one of those graphs where it's like up in the middle and it's down on the sides, you know? I'd say it's probably something more like that if I had to guess because lots of carbon isn't doing very good for us right now.
In the atmosphere. All of the carbon in the fossil fuels we are burning for energy today was once in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide before it was consumed by plankton in the sea and plants on the land. Coal, oil, and natural gas are the remains of those plankton and plants that have been transformed by heat and pressure deep in the Earth's crust. In other words, fossil fuels are 100% organic.
I I mean, this is a weird way of putting it. Um, but I don't really see how that's at all compelling to change the fact that we have serious problems with our carbon. Like we still have serious issues with carbon just because in the past carbon became like all of our fossil fuels and things, and now it's being turned into carbon again, like out in the atmosphere. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's okay and it's not going to have an impact. Like we've had times with lots of carbon in the past, and the planet was, unsurprisingly, a lot warmer then as well. So it's not particularly shocking to find out that when we're doing what has happened before, when in the past there was a lot of carbon and it was warmer, and we're releasing a lot of carbon, it's getting warmer, that's not particularly shocking.
And were produced with solar energy. Sounds positively green. If there were no carbon dioxide
I don't, I don't, I mean, I guess take a shot at green energy, I guess, sure.
in the Earth's atmosphere, the Earth would be a dead planet. Period. Talk
So the argument here is not that we should have no carbon dioxide, but that we should not produce the excessive amounts of it that we have. Like, this is a little ridiculous.
about catastrophic climate change. Take away CO2 and you'd have it. And yet the US Environmental Protection Agency has deemed this essential ingredient for life a pollutant.
Yeah, because there's too much of it. It's pollutant because we have too much now. We need to get it under control because obviously we can use some of it, but we have too much. I don't really know what's so complicated about this either. Come on, Patrick. Patrick,
But how can something that makes life possible be bad?
if you drink too much water, it's bad for you. If you eat too much of a certain nutrient, like any nutrient, I don't know, pick whatever one, like fiber, or iron, or potassium, or sodium, it's bad for you. Just because you need it doesn't mean that in excess it can't be bad. It doesn't mean that any amount of it is good. Like, didn't your parents ever tell you like just because chocolate tastes good, like you can't eat a ton of it, like you have to moderate? Did you not learn that?
Before I deal with that question, let's get clear on our terms. It has become common to refer to the emissions from burning fossil fuels for energy as carbon emissions. That is entirely misleading.
But they are carbon that is being emitted. It pretty straightforward.
Carbon dioxide is not carbon. Carbon dioxide is a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas which
Wait,
is
I'll let
an
him go.
indispensable food for all living things.
I mean, we can call it carbon dioxide emissions if you want, but I don't really know why this is what you're nitpicking about.
Can you have too much of it? In theory, yes. That's what climate alarmists say is happening now.
Climate alarmists? This isn't. I don't know. God, why they gotta make it sound so dramatic? Climate alarmists. We're just telling you what's going on, like, and it is concerning, but that's not being alarmist. That's just what's happening. Like, this is what's going on.
Now, CO2 levels are getting too high.
Yes.
Are they right?
Yes.
Well, if we look at the big picture, we find something surprising. For most of the history of life on Earth, carbon dioxide has been present in the atmosphere at much higher levels than it is today. During the Cambrian explosion, when multicellular life first came on the scene, CO2 levels were as much as 10 times higher than they are today.
And it was much warmer then than it was now. this that's the connection.
From a big picture perspective, we're actually living in a low carbon dioxide era.
Yes, a lower carbon dioxide era, as it turns out, is probably what's good for people. People weren't living during the Cambrian explosion period.
The optimum level of CO2 for plant growth, for example, is 4 to 5 times what is currently found in our atmosphere. That's why greenhouse growers worldwide actually inject additional CO2 into their greenhouse.
Yeah, but just because it's good for the plants doesn't necessarily mean that it's feasible for us or even for the planet as a whole. I mean, and so let's take that claim at face value, which again, I mean, might not necessarily be true. Obviously, like I said before, Prager U is funded by fossil fuel billionaires, so take their information with a grain of salt. But let's assume that it is true. And thinking about it, right? There are obviously plants that would grow pretty well with more carbon and more fuel and fuel, like in air quotes, like food, sustenance to grow. But it's not good for us because the planet would be significantly warmer. Many of the natural disasters that we have would change. The oceans would get kind of bad. Like there'd be a lot of problems for us, even if for some plants there might not be. Depends on what plants you're talking about too, because like coral's going to do really bad.
Houses. They want to promote plant growth. Likewise, higher CO2 levels in the global atmosphere will boost food and forest productivity. That will come in handy since by mid century we will have to feed 8 to 10 billion people.
We already have the food to feed that many people. We just don't distribute it actively or effectively because capitalism doesn't incentivize that. But anyways,
In fact, we're already seeing the positive effects of increased carbon dioxide now.
are we positive effects? The planet's suffering pretty hard. The ocean is absorbing a lot of it. Our oceans are going to get pretty ruined. And that's not even considering the fact that we're starting to get into points where like segments of the world are going to have like permanent droughts, and it's going to force people to relocate. Like people are already having to relocate because of climate change, and we're going to put parts of our planet underwater on the coasts and stuff.
Satellite measurements have noted the greening of the Earth as crops and forests grow due to our higher levels of CO2.
I'm not necessarily sure how accurate that is, but we'll leave it for now, just so that way I don't interrupt him like every couple seconds.
It turns out that carbon dioxide are not dirty words after all. We should
Not you know. I just think the dirty word thing is a little picky. Like obviously it has its benefits, and no one's saying that it doesn't do some good things. Like plants use it and stuff, but that like just because it does things doesn't mean that it's not also doing the other things that it's very clearly scientifically proven to do. Like it's very slippery the way that they're trying to phrase and discuss the things.
celebrate CO2 as the giver of life that it is.
Oh
I'm
my
Patrick
god.
Moore, co-founder of Greenpeace for Prager University.
He talks about carbon the way that conservatives talk about like a person who got banned on Twitter. He's like they need to be celebrated. Why are we going after them? What is with this canceling? Anyways, I it's just a bizarre. Let's see what the comments have to say before we jump out. Should I make a video explaining the problems with these arguments? Yes, actually, that's what I'm looking at. Water is also essential. Yes, exactly. It could be on a GTA 5 radio station. I agree. I knew I should have stayed in school. I don't know. The Thunderfoot video. Wow, look, someone is. Yeah, it was completely uninhabitable. See? It's harmless because you cannot. Yeah, see? Look, this guy's talking about it too. This is good. Exactly, exactly. Anyways, thank y'all for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed what well, I guess what he had to say and also what I had to say. I hope it was interesting. And I'll come back to you guys again soon. Thank you. Have a nice day.